Paula and I do as a company through the Frieda B book series, and specifically the work that we do in pre-K-5 schools. And honored that you would take your time to spend with us today. We can't thank you enough for what you did not ask to happen in the last 6 months, and the way that you all are handling it is, it's actually very much what we're talking about. It's this idea of resilience, of using conflict to create a great chapter. And we're watching you and your educators do that at this period of time. So I'm excited to delve into this topic with you today, and I hope it will give you kind of a new perspective on possibly using stories either in the classroom or remote learning as a way of continuing to create a culture of autonomy and community and resilience within your school family. So before I move into that, I would like to ask Rosie O'Brien-Wojtek from Connecticut Association of Schools to just speak for a moment. We're so grateful, Rosie, that you asked us to join you here today, and just give you a little time here to share.
Thank you, Renata, and thank you, Paula, and thank you for wanting to partner with us for this great opportunity. And hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today, even if it is virtual and not what we had planned when we started talking about this way back when. Last November, I had the opportunity to actually visit the Story Barn, and I met Renata and Paula at one of your administrator retreats, and I literally fell in love with the Story Barn and listening to Renata talk about her passion for writing. I especially enjoyed learning more about the ideas and the concepts that went behind the scenes in your planning and your writing for the Frieda B books. It was a great opportunity to learn a lot more about Frieda than I ever would have gotten just by looking at the books and reading them. I wish we could all be sitting at the Story Barn today because it's such a lovely place, such a welcoming place, just a comfortable feel. So as I came in this morning, Renata and Paula had their coffee, and so I ran and grabbed mine as well. So if you want to grab a cup of coffee, go do it, because when we were sitting at the Story Barn in November, we actually had a cup of coffee. But we're really excited to be here to listen to Renata talk, give you a tour of the Story Barn as best she can virtually, and also tell you about the Frieda B books, the whole child toolkit, and the materials to promote social and emotional learning. And most importantly, I think, is that comes through loud and clear every time I talk to you, Renata, is your passion for helping students of all ages become more resilient, especially during these challenging times, as you already said. So the Connecticut Association of Schools and I are very excited to be partnering with both of you and the Story Barn today to bring this virtual retreat. Thank you, Renata, for hosting this session. And I also want to thank Shelton principals Amy Yost and Andrea Diodo, who are here today. They're going to talk a little bit at the end, I think, about how they use the books and the materials in their school. I know that we're all in for a big treat as we listen to Renata today share with us Frieda B and how we can all explore the one-of-a-kind Frieda B story within each of us. So again, thank you, Renata, for this great opportunity to learn more about Frieda B and storytelling, and how you are such an amazing author. It's always such a pleasure to talk with you. And once again, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Rosie. Wow, what a nice way to start the day. So I do want to remind you or let you know, we do have materials, we have details and pricing in physical or electronic files that we can definitely get to you. We do not have your email information right now. And so if this is something that you would like us to get to you following the presentation today, just some, kind of a file of the slides that I show today, as well as some pricing information, we're happy to email that to you. So just either type your email address in the chat room, or especially if you're watching this after the fact, email us at info@friedab.com and request that, and we'll make sure you get that. So to get started, I am honored, as I said, when I consider how much of an impact educators and stories have had on my life, it is little wonder that I have been drawn into this niche in my own professional work. My father is still an educator at 87 years old. He just really impacted me in such a way as far as what a true educator is. And And so there's the whole educator realm, and of course there's the stories realm. And as I was thinking about today, I was thinking back to my childhood, and I was thinking about, you know, what stories really impacted me as a child. And it was, there's so many, but Laura Ingalls Wilder definitely, there are seconds and thirds, but this one for me, I was Laura Ingalls Wilder growing up. I was her. And she helped me learn more about myself. And then, do you remember Mr. Edwards and Pa and Ma and Carrie and Mary and everybody, Mr. Olson? Remember Mrs. Olson? Like, it was the whole community. And I remember feeling like I was part of that community. I could actually picture myself there. And then remember the conflicts. You know, there were horrible, scary things that happened living out, you know, in the plains. And yet how as a community they faced that together and how strong they were. And it just makes me realize that, you know, that line of stories helped create who I am and helped me navigate some of the more difficult questions as a child as to how to navigate. And so I want to just take a second and ask you to ponder, because it's not insignificant, the stories that we were exposed to as a child. It's not insignificant. I want you to ponder what books inspired you. What books inspired you as a child? Now, this is something you can either just take a few seconds and think of in your head, or if you want to share out, type them in the chat room. Whenever I do PD, we ask educators to do this, and it actually helps my own personal library quite a great deal. So if you feel like sharing out in the chat, go right ahead. But just take a moment to think, what books, what characters really impacted you when you were a child? So when we think about that, when we think about those books, we start realizing that they, not in a small way, likely help to shape a little bit of who we are. We chose the books that we loved because they resonated with us. And different books resonate with different children. And why? Why does that happen? So it's, what do good stories do? I mean, when you really break it down, and this is what I find fascinating as an author, and as a reader, and as someone who loves education, good stories inspire us to believe in our own. They inspire us to realize I matter. So Laura Ingalls Wilder, she's a strong, amazing character, right? And I identified with her. And by identifying with her, I started to understand what it meant to be autonomous. She wasn't like Carrie. She wasn't like Mary. She wasn't like the other kids in the schoolhouse. They had similarities, but she was her own girl. And I liked her. And there were a lot that she and I had in common. And I started feeling autonomous. I didn't know that. And through that, I started realizing that she mattered, and therefore so did I as an individual. It also helped me to believe that I belong. She was part of a beautiful family and a beautiful community that was by no means perfect. But when push comes to shove, they were always there for each other. So she had a place of safety, of identity within a community, of support, of encouragement, of exampling, of mentoring. She had this beautiful, safe place. So she knew she belonged, and therefore so did I. I knew what it meant to belong, and I knew what it looked like, and I knew I wanted that in my life. And so I sought it out as a child, and now I seek to recreate that as an adult for others. Stories help that happen. Finally, by watching Laura Ingalls Wilder, I knew she could, with the help of her community and with the belief in herself and her unique abilities, she could. When something came up, she could do it. She could figure it out. She could problem solve. She could seek help. She could take a deep breath and be patient. She could, and that's resilience. And I started learning that if she could, maybe I could, right? And so I do believe to a great degree, the resilience that I learned as a child was inspired by the stories that I loved. I remember I grew up on 11 acres of land, and not around anybody else. And I remember being out in the woods and, you know, pretending who I was, what I was capable of. I came up with things to conquer. I came up with things to build, to create. And so much of what was running through my head as the narrative were either the direct or iterations of the stories that I loved. And it became a story for myself, and it helped create my identity. And so that's really what stories are capable of doing. Now, I'm not saying they are the be all end all, but when you're talking about tools in a toolkit for educators and for parents and helping children find a sense of purpose and belief in self, stories are highly accessible and incredibly powerful when used with just a bit of know-how and intention. And that's what we seek to do through this program. Frieda B, the Whole Child is really about helping educators understand how, with just a little bit of the work that we've done and what we've learned and the research we've done, and from the perspective of an author, this idea of bringing stories to a child to awaken the story within and to create a culture of belief and belonging and resilience in your school. It's not a difficult stretch to get you there. And so that's what we're here to walk you through today. Secondly, books can't do it on their own. Absolutely not. And this is something, as I told you, with educators in my life, if I know anything for certain, it's that every child needs a genuine, no, this is actually getting blocked out by me. So I'll let you read it because I'm blocked. But if you want to change the world, believe in the child who's right in front of you. And that really brings you into just a quick background of who I am and where I come from. I had 3 educators directly impact me in my life. The upper left-hand corner is my father. He is, as I said, continues to be a middle school educator. He's a music teacher. At 87, he's still teaching. He is passionate about educating because he's passionate about children and awakening the child within each child. Awakening the gifts, the purpose, the fulfillment, the worth within each child, and then education comes after that. I learned that inherently from my father, to love the child first and educate her second. So that's what I grew up with. I grew up with him. I continue to grow up with him as my role model. In the lower left-hand corner is Jean Dorn. She was a friend of our family. She also was my first grade teacher. I was not a powerhouse academically at all, but Jean Dorn, my first grade teacher, had a red clawfoot bathtub in her classroom filled with pillows. And she knew how much I loved to read. And the rule was, if you get all your work done, you get to spend some time in the reading bathtub. I know for a fact Jean Dorn gave me passes because she knew how much I loved that bathtub. And I spent so much time as a very, very happy student in that bathtub reading. And I swore one day I would have a bathtub of my own, and I do. I actually refinished it myself. It's the same red. It's filled with pillows. So that was a first grade educator. It impacted me all the way into my adult years and the work I'm doing now. The bottom right-hand corner is Professor Martin Moldenhauer, who was my junior year English language arts professor. I was no powerhouse, as I said. Intellectually, with regards to academics, I just kind of coasted along. No one knew who I was as far as, you know, I didn't do anything amazing. I didn't do anything horrible. But one day, 2 weeks into my junior year, Professor Moldenhauer asked me to stay after class. And he, of course, you know, he asked me that at the beginning of the class period. And so you can imagine those 50 minutes were worthless to me because I had no idea what I'd done wrong and why he was asking me to stay after. And after I was very sweaty after class, everybody filed out. And he came up to me and he said, I just want to let you know, I've been looking at your work these last 2 weeks and, I really need to let you know you're a good writer. And I exaggerate not one iota when I say those 4 words changed my life because I didn't know I was a good writer. I figured if I was good at writing, then everybody must be good at writing because I wasn't really good at much. And I needed for him to tell me what he knew about me, and then I could believe it for myself. And those 4 words actually changed the whole trajectory of my future life. I was going to go to school to be a teacher. which still would be my secondary choice. But based on his belief in me, I went to school to become a writer. And I had various jobs in writing until I stumbled across just writing these books for fun and actually having them turn into something. So that gives you an idea of why this curriculum, why this whole child work, why this work with you is deeply passionate for me. And I can speak on behalf of Paula, my business partner, as well. We, to the end of our days, will spend our time encouraging the story within every child. That's what we do. And so if our tools can help you do that for your students, then we are right alongside you to do it. So here's the first book that I wrote. This was published back in 2010, but to give you an idea, I wrote it in 1994. So when I speak with kids, even adults, about the idea of dreaming big dreams, it also comes with a lot of patience. That dreams operate on their timeline and they demand a lot of us. So when I work with children, I just want to qualify. I never come from that Disney, like, when you wish upon a star, everything is rainbows and unicorns. It's not. That's not how it works. We need to be practical here. But each of us does have a unique worth within us. And when that is validated and we're willing to put in hard work and determination, we each can tell a story that impacts the world. And that's really, this book here then became the foundation of that work that we now do. I have been blessed with community now in my own work life. This upper left-hand photo here, Michael Chesworth, he is the illustrator of all of the Frieda B books. He lives in Amherst, Massachusetts, and has an incredible talent, but also a very deep sensitivity to how to tell a story to children in pictures. And we are blessed to work with him. And then Paula, whom you've met, came alongside me in 2010. We incorporated as an LLC in 2012. Everything we do, from publishing the books to creating the curriculum to doing events, happens between Paula and myself and our two husbands. This is a family-owned company. So the LaJoy family and the Bowers family really have full autonomy to direct this in the way that we feel is best for children. And then just the upper right-hand photo just gives you an idea. When we do events, we just have this tremendous, amazing, and growing community of family and friends and professionals who come alongside us and help us see this dream to fruition. So we're just really blessed with our own little mini community here. This is the book series as it stands right now, just to give you a quick visual. I'll delve into it when we talk more about the curriculum itself. There is a 7th on the way. I am very excited to announce we actually just got the sketch draft from Michael yesterday. And so that one's going to be a little bit different. It's going to still be a full story, but it's going to be a coloring book. And it's called Frieda B's A, B's, and C's. And so that really is going to take us back down to those very, very young children. Because these books really do have a way of spanning pre-K through 8, pre-K through 5. But the simplicity of this one will really speak to those young children. And this is the question that really is at the foundation of all the work that we do. We are encouraging a child to start considering, who are you free to be? So we explore Frieda B as a character, you know, all of her magnificent qualities and all of her magnificent challenges and shortcomings. And then we ask the child to consider for herself or himself. You know, think about it. Now, who are you free to be? And that draws us into this dialogue with the child of helping the child understand he or she has a one-of-a-kind, never before told, amazing, very important story tucked within. And that when we become aware of that, and I'll share with you a little bit later on the very tool that we use to help a child be able to visualize how that works and start dreaming it into some tangible tools for you. So obviously, all of this work then has brought us into schools. This is going to look a little bit different than the next year, I'm sure. But I am used to working in large assemblies and small, doing author visits as well as artist in residence work, anywhere that I can help a child or children start to conceptualize this idea of having a story, that's where I go. And so working within schools personally is something I love doing. We also do professional development with educators. And so really, and we do family nights. So I'm working at all levels. I'm working with your students, I'm working with your staff, I'm working with your families, to really help everyone come on board with this idea of every single person has a story, and every single story has worth and a place within a larger story. That then led to the very thing we're talking about today, which is the curriculum and the toolkit that we developed for pre-K-5 schools called Frieda B, the Whole Child. And we'll dig into this toolkit a bit just so you can get a better idea of what's involved. But essentially the idea is that we have created a toolkit. So this is not a program. You have plenty of programs that are either ELA or SEL based. This is a toolkit that will enhance those programs. So if you're doing something at a second step and it's dealing with conflict, you know you can dig into our toolbox and, oh, look, Frieda B Meets the Man in the Moon is all about conflict resolution. Oh, look, there's a video that talks to the kids about how to, think about this story. Oh, look, there's a hands-on activity that we can play act this whole thing out to better understand why kindness and honesty is so integral to resolving conflict. So we've got all kinds of tools, lesson plans and hands-on activities and printables and all kinds of things that then you can draw from to complement the work that you're already doing, the programs you're already using. And with the work that we're doing, this is just very top line. The whole child is really, really important. We went in that direction because it rings true, not just with me personally, but with everything that we've learned about seeing children. It's about seeing the child in every child. And that means not just, as you know, academically, intellectually. Every child is comprised of 5 areas of strengths: intellectual, social, emotional, spiritual, and physical. With this curriculum, with this toolkit, what we're giving you is tools to help pull out all 5 and see where the child shines. Because wherever the child shines, that is what comprises her whole story. And so, as I mentioned, growing up, I never felt strong intellectually. It's not to say I wasn't, but I didn't feel strong intellectually. But anyone who knew me well and the ones who loved me into this place where I am today understood that social emotional was my language. And they fed me with that. And so it made me whole. And that is what the whole child approach is all about. So that is woven extremely throughout every fiber of the curriculum that we pull together. And then with regards to English language arts and social emotional learning, what I love as an author, I seriously feel like I hit the jackpot. I didn't even realize this. It was an educator who has her doctorate came to me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought of doing curriculum?" I'm like, oh, no. Because remember, that intellectual part of me that doesn't feel strong does not feel worthy of writing curriculum. Are you kidding me? That's not who I am. But here's the amazing thing. You put the why in front of me, which is, she explained to me, your stories fulfill English language arts requirements, but they also fulfill social emotional learning objectives. And you can tell your stories as a way of building the child from within, and that's something that schools need. And guess what? As soon as I heard that, maybe a few tears, and Paula and I maybe wrestled with it for a little bit, but we suddenly knew we were all in. We were going to make this happen, and it took us 2 years of writing and researching and sitting across the table with countless educators and piloting it in 3 schools until we really felt confident we had something that worked. But the idea is you are now going to be able to take anything that we give you out of our toolkit and accomplish both English language arts and social emotional learning objectives in the same lesson, whether that be with an individual child, a classroom, an entire school, a family, a staff meeting, or working remotely. The idea is that you're going to be able to you're going to achieve both of those within every tool that we give you. And then on top of it all, it's stories. So who doesn't love stories? I had a teacher recently reach out to me and say, if I have to do this remote teaching, which looks likely in the fall. How do I foster that connection? Do you have any ideas? How do I foster that connection with my students? And I have to tell you, my first response was that I'm not worthy to answer this question. This is what you do. But it is what I do. And I said, you know what? If I know anything, it's that stories erase all gaps. They bring us present into the same room together, whether we're there or not. Stories, we escape into them together. And so the idea of using stories as a way of connecting with our remote students and families is also just a tremendous tool of talking with the student. There's 100 ways to do this. But for instance, talking with the student saying, hey, next time we meet, I want you to bring with you a story that you've loved, and I'll bring one that I've loved, and we can share why we love them together. And then start recommending other stories and see suddenly you've created a relationship around the stories that you love. So that's what we do with this. Written story inspires human story across all channels. Finally, the Story Barn. That's where Paula and I are coming to you from today. It's where we first met Rosie in person. The Story Barn is something we are so blessed and humbled by. We, as families and as a company, purchased this and opened back in August of last year. So this is just a quick shot of the exterior of the property. This is a some shots of the interior. So this is upstairs, which used to be the old hayloft, has become a workshop space that can hold somewhere between 30 to 40 people. Right now, obviously, we're not using it. We did not want to open with a lot of restrictions and plexiglass. So as of right now, the inside is not something we are making open to the public. Paula happens to be sitting, and can you wave, Paula? Paula happens to be sitting in the downstairs portion, which is much more barnwood and lodge feeling, and we can do small groups down there. It also is where we house and fulfill all of our products. So that's the inside, and then outside, we have moved fully outside. As in the last couple of weeks, we're doing a program called Summer of Wonder, and we're inviting families and kids of all ages onto our property to explore the outdoors, to collect elements in nature and use them to create physical projects or crafts. And so you see some of those photos in here of what the kids are creating. But it's 3 hours of time to be outside in nature, exploring. There's a lot of freedom. We have 7 acres. So yes, we can also use our property as it becomes appropriate, and we're able to do so, to bring your school here, either as in field trips or staff meetings or professional development. This property is designed to bring people here and to encourage their stories. And this just gives you an idea. This is the program we're currently running for the next couple of weeks yet. Time spent in wonder feeds and inspires the story within us. So again, it's always about story here. It's always about encouraging that story within a child. Anything we can do to encourage the story within a child or adult is what we pursue. All right. Finally, this just kind of sums everything up for us. Life and learning matter to a child when a child believes she matters. This is what I learned from my father, that he did not even begin teaching until he reached the child. And so everything that we do is designed to create connections in a culture that makes a child believe she matters and belongs. And once a child believes she matters and belongs, she is far more receptive to participating academically and socially. Not only that, school is a common denominator for our children. They all come from different backgrounds, and that we can't control, but we can control the experience they have when they're with us in our school, be that in school or remotely. It's a culture of who we are together as a population. It gives children a sense of what it means to be autonomous, to be part of a functioning community that seeks the greater good to tell a greater story, and a community that believes that when hard times come, we will use that as an opportunity to become great. Okay, so moving into now this particular toolkit and curriculum that we offer, we wanted to just give you a top line idea of what do we offer to schools as far as what are your options for even considering working with us. The first is the books. This is a nationally awarded picture book series. It received Best Picture Book award from the Moonbeam Children's Book Awards. And so these are books that can simply be used in the classroom. They are all very social, emotionally driven. Each one has a different theme, and I will cover that in just a second. So the books themselves are teaching tools. Then we also have the toolkit, and the toolkit comes with a whole host of items that I also will detail momentarily. You also have private events, meaning 3 hours of my time to use however you like. An author visit, professional development, time with your families, be that in person or virtually, is another option. And finally, individual registration PDs. We now are offering, our first sessions are starting August 12th and 13th right here from where I'm sitting right now. I will work with each story and lesson individually, and people can register for those individually. So an educator, a parent can sign up, come virtually, and I will walk you through, you will receive the book, and I will walk you through how to use that book with a child. And so that's the other way you can participate. So those are the 4 areas that we have available to you to consider. And as I said, if you want more information about this as well as pricing, that's something we are happy to send to you by email. Just make sure one way or another we get your email address. We don't have it because CAS certainly is not going to give that to us. That would not be right. You gave your address to them. So if you want the materials, you need to give your email address to us. You can do that in the chat room, or you can email us at info@friedab.com, and I'll have that slide at the end of today's presentation. Okay, so I am now going to actually go off screen share, and I am going to, oh, I can see more of you. Hi, nice. All right, so I'm gonna walk you through a little bit now of each of those tools, okay? So let's start with the books. The books each are designed to teach a different social emotional lesson, although that's not why I wrote them. It just so happens that's how it works. Frieda B herself is all about personal story and worth. She is free to be herself. You are free to be yourself. Everyone is free to be themselves, but you are not free to be someone else. That, if I have to put it in a very short nutshell, is what this book is about. It is the foundational book to the series. Next is Frieda B Meets the Man in the Moon. This is our conflict resolution book. So Frieda B decides she wants to take a trip to meet the man, or she wants to take a trip to the moon. And on the way, she gets distracted, and she ends up crashing into the moon and hurts the man in the moon. The rest of the story is all about what do you do when you have hurt someone or someone else has hurt you, intentionally or unintentionally. How is that resolved? And we talk a lot about honesty and kindness and what that actually means, and how conflict is not the thing we should be focusing on, but community and resolution. So that's that story. Third in the series is Frieda B and the Zilla Beast. And in this story, Frieda ignores her mom calling her down for breakfast and ignores feeding her dog because she's just come home from the library and she's enamored with all the books she has at her disposal. So she ends up falling into a book of fairy tales, of classics fairy tales, and gets lost in Snow White, and then gets lost in Little Red Riding Hood. And along the way, Zilla becomes a beast. There are little clues tucked throughout the story of food. So Snow White is placing freshly baked bread on a shelf. Little Red Riding Hood has her basket full of food. And along the way, Zilla turns from a very sweet little lovable dog into a beast. I will just show you the mastery of Michael Chesworth as an example. So this is, moving into the story now quite a bit. He is now turned into a beast, and she thinks obviously he is the big bad wolf, but he's just hungry and she's got a basket of food. So it helps kids to start examining what happens when I don't put others first. And so that is what that story is all about, is actually, I call it good selfish. It is understanding that when I put someone else first, I'm actually doing the best thing for me. If I always put myself first, and I always put myself first, and I always put myself first, who takes care of me? But if I put everyone else first, appropriately so, if I take care of others when they need that, then who's going to take care of me when I need it? a lot of people. So that's all about building authentic community. Frieda B and the Finkeldy Inc. is about the power of belief. How important belief is. My brother-in-law has a favorite saying, which you've probably heard, which is whether you believe or you can, or you believe you can't, you're right. The power of belief, whatever we believe tends to fuel what we do. And so in this story, she struggles with a man who comes to town selling this jar of magical Finkeldy ink. And she wants to be a writer, but she doesn't think she can be. So she buys the jar of ink, and then the ink shatters and it's gone, and the man is gone. And she has to wrestle with, what does she believe about herself? And then it also comes down to her dog Zilla, which is indicative of what happens when we start to doubt ourselves. Sometimes we doubt ourselves to such a small place, it's very, very hard to get ourselves out of it alone. And so Zilla in this story actually gives Frieda a pencil and nudges her to write again. And because of the belief of her friend, this is one of my favorite lines. And although Frieda B didn't feel it inside, the belief of her friend gave her courage to try. And of course, from there, everything came together. You might recognize this image. This is the image we use quite often for our work in schools. It is this idea of autonomy and community and resilience. So that's that story. Frieda B, A Great Day at the Dog Park is about being a hero by seeing with your heart. So we walk kids through the idea of what it looks like when we use our imagination to see things differently. So see these tires in the park. We challenge kids to see things differently by seeing how Frieda sees those tires differently and other items in the park. And then we move into actually seeing people differently. And there's a boy who becomes angry in the park, and Frieda becomes very upset because the boy yelled at her dog, and her dad steps in and says, sometimes things that we say don't match what's in our heart. Let me talk with this boy. It's a good place to start. And by talking to him, they learn that he's lost his dog. And then Frieda is able to make the connection and realize she knows exactly where the dog is because she bumped into him earlier that day. And by seeing with her heart instead of her eyes, Frieda actually was the hero that reconnected the boy with his dog. So it's a lot about empathy, and it's heavy in emotional vocabulary, helping to teach kids to also learn how to express what they're feeling, because anger doesn't teach us much about what's going on inside. But when the boy was able to express what was going on, then they could understand the situation and step in. So that one's heavy on empathy and emotional vocabulary. And then the sixth book actually is not a part of the original toolkit, because this is the most recent book, and it is a teaching tool in and of itself. This is the book from which we draw really, truly the story of resilience. And I'm going to get into that momentarily. So this one is called Frieda B Knows It's True. You are free to be you. This is still a story, but it's an intentional story. I'm now talking to the reader. And a lot of this story is about the work that I've done, that I do. And Ms. Foster is a children's librarian who helps kids to start understanding the very thing that I teach, which is every book has a story and every person has a story. And then really, again, this is the activity that we'll walk through to help a child internalize how she can begin to understand what her own unique one-of-a-kind story is. Okay, so I'm going to show you now, as part of the toolkit, one of the things you get is 15 videos, 3 videos per book. One video is me talking to you just like we're doing right now. Hello, educator. Thanks for inviting me today. We're going to be talking about this book. Let me tell you why I wrote this book. Let me tell you what works in the classroom. So it's just this, okay? The second video is me talking to your kids and saying, hey, we're going to read this book today. I'm so excited to read this book with you today. So while I read this book, I want you to be paying attention to X, Y, and Z. Okay, so that's something you can just play right in the classroom. The third video is actually taped live, me doing the hands-on activity in the classroom with a group of students. So the background to this is that when I was little, I always had to try a story on. I don't know. I thought everybody did that. And I realized somewhat recently that's not true. So I would read a story and then I would have to try it on. Like Laura Ingalls Wilder, remember with the maple on the snow, when you take the sap on the snow, maple syrup, like I had to try that on. So what I do with my books is I always find a way that children can try the story on. So there are kids who are not audible or visual learners, but they're tactile learners. So for me, trying the story on can only seek to enhance the story for an audible or visual learner. But for someone who doesn't really fire on either of those ends, they'll have this opportunity to finally have that story internalized by trying it on. So the try-on activity for the very first book, Frieda B herself, is the hands activity that I developed, and the very hands activity that then I have finally written into story form in this book. But so it's so foundational that I want you to see how it works with a group of children. So I'm going to give you a 5-minute clip of the hands-on activity video that comes out of the toolbox for Frieda B herself. So I'm going to screen share and I'm going to find that and then scoop out of this for a sec and pull this up. Okay, so I'm going to make this larger, and here we go. I'm going to ask you to hold out your right hand, and I want you to hold it such that it's almost like a little bowl or a cup, like something could fit inside of there. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. I want you to listen to the question I'm going to ask you, and then I want you to quietly think about how you want to answer it. Here we go. What are you good at? Now, there's a gajillion things in the world to be good at. You're not good at most of them. But there are some things you are very good at. You might be good at math. You might be good at jumping rope. You might be good at soccer. You might be good at drawing pictures. You might be a great big sister. You might be a really, really good listener. Maybe you give the best hugs of anybody around. Maybe you like baking cupcakes. Maybe you like singing. You see, there's a gajillion things. Think about the things that you truly believe you are good at and enjoy doing. All right, open your eyes. Look up at me. I want you to imagine that whatever you answered up here to that question, you're able to take it out and put it right inside that hand. Okay, so that's that question. We have one more question to go. Hold out your left hand for me. Same way. Close your eyes. Here's the second question. What or who do you most care about? Now, there's a gajillion things in the world to care about. You cannot care about all of them. But there are some things you care about an awful lot. For a lot of people, it's family and friends, maybe pets. But beyond that, there are other things you care about. Either things that make you really, really excited, or some things that break your heart and you wish you could make better. Think about what you care about, who you care about. Go ahead and open your eyes. I want you to imagine that whatever you answered up here, you can take out and put in that hand. Understand that what you're holding right now, you might add more to it later if you get more time to think about it. This isn't, now it's a done deal. You can always add to this, okay, with your heart. Hold up your right hand. This is the stuff you're good at. Hold up your left hand. This is the stuff you care about. Say it with me. The stuff you're good at. The stuff you care about. One more time. The stuff you're good at. The stuff you care about. Awesome. Now bring those hands together. Now I want you to hold them just like this, like you're holding a ball in your hands. And shake it up just a little bit. Here's the amazing thing, guys. What you're holding in here, no one ever has held this before. And no one ever will hold it again.
The combination of what you're good at and what you care about, combined with the experiences you have in your life, means this is a one of a kind. It'll never, ever exist again. So when I talk about dreaming big, I'm not talking about dreaming out stuff that you aren't good at, stuff you can't do. I mean, I can't be Michael Jordan. I might like to be, but I can't be. I'm terrible at basketball. But I really like reading, and I really like writing, and I really care about kids a lot. And I've always dreamt about that. And this is the amazing thing that I found. When I every day say, today, what am I good at, and what do I care about today? What's happening around me? How does that make me feel about what I'm good at and what I care about? And you don't worry about tomorrow, and you certainly don't worry about 10 years from now. You just look at it for today and say, what can I do with that today? What ends up happening is your story starts to tell itself through you, through what you're good at, through what you care about. Maybe you go home today and someone you love a lot has had a really bad day. Do you care about that? Okay, well, I really care about that. What could I do? Well, I'm really good at drawing pictures, or I'm really good at writing a poem, or I'm a really good hugger. So go up to that person, draw him or her a picture, write him or her a poem, give a hug. Whatever you're good at, use it to take care of the things you care about. And don't worry about what you're going to be when you grow up, because you couldn't know it anyway. Just think about today. What do you love and what do you care about? And when you dream big about that, you're going to tell a pretty amazing story, a really amazing story that's going to make at least one person's life better. And it's going to make you feel really good about yourself.
Okay. So I want to show you, before I go off of screen share, I'm going to bring up this PowerPoint. I want to show you in the toolkit, one of the things that we give you are printable activities. And to build on this thing that we just watched, I oftentimes encourage teachers to, shortly after that activity, pull from one of these 3 activities we give you. I'm just going to show you one as example. So this is the cover of Frieda B herself, but obviously the only thing that's been kept is the bed. And so what we instruct a child to do at this point is to now, after that exercise, fill up this picture. If you were to have a cover to your story, what would it look like? And so what we're asking them to do is, on the back, make 2 lists: the stuff you're good at and the stuff you care about. Then make those things show up in your cover somehow. Give your cover a title. I'm Frieda B. And we really don't want necessarily kids saying, I'm free to be a veterinarian, I'm free to be, a policeman, I'm free to be a teacher. We don't necessarily want that. We're looking more at, I'm free to be a good helper. I'm free to be a big dreamer. I'm free to be myself. I'm free to be kind. More about characteristics, less about things. And then fill up this picture with visuals and words that creates then a unique cover for the child. So I want to show you what that can look like. So you can see how there are some things in common, right? They all have the I'm free to be title. They all have the bed flying through the air. So there are commonalities. At the same time, they're vastly different. So to have each child make one of these gives you, as the educator, the opportunity, first of all, to have an insight into the whole child. So the things that she or he is writing down of importance would be the things that you could encourage. Secondly, when you put them all up, either as a classroom or a school or a grade, you put them all up, you see we are all alike in that we have a story. We have an important story, a story worthy of a cover. We all have one. But wow, they're all so different. It's also an amazing tool to use during a staff meeting, especially at the beginning of the year or when you're in periods of conflict or uncertainty. Because this one in the lower left, this was created by an adult. And so it's also a way for us to get to know each other and to find our commonalities and our strengths and say, wow, you're good at that. I stink at that. Could you help me with that? Or, oh my goodness, you like that too. So do I, but you've got different gifts and I've got different gifts that could approach that. So this is just, it looks really simple, and that's the beauty of it. It looks really simple, and it is, but it's very profound in starting to help an individual uncover who he or she is and let the world see it. And that's when we can start building community, is once we realize each other's true strengths. We don't focus on the weaknesses. That's somebody else's strength. I don't care about your weaknesses other than finding someone else who has that as a strength. But you've got strengths that other people don't have. And so this is a marvelous building block. The hands activity and this activity alone are so foundational to the work that we do, and they're very, very simple. All right. So, so then we're going to just, I'm going to get off of this for a second here. And so then we're talking, so that really brings us through the books, and that brings us through the toolkit. Just to reiterate about the toolkit, if you were to purchase it, it comes in this box, and you will get within this box the handbook and a full set of the 5 books along with some other goodies. But I'll quickly show you what the handbook looks like. This is the handbook, and what you need to know is that everything that's in this handbook you also receive as an electronic file, meaning within your school family, you, your educators, and your parents can all have access to the items that are in here. What's in here? You've got originally just kind of the research and the who, why, what behind this toolkit. Then you move into why is it significant for a school? Again, some more research and how-tos. Then how does it work? This actually will show you not only how this toolkit can work as far as using the different elements within it, but there's also written out, detailed, a 3-hour professional development you could conduct yourself using all the different tools, including the videos. So if this is something you're interested in, you actually could conduct your own professional development. And then finally, the lessons and activities. So for every one of the first 5 books, you'll get a letter from me. You'll get a full lesson plan, which details the English language arts objectives, the social emotional learning objectives for each lesson. The theme, this one says personal story and worth. This is your educator working theme. This is your objective, is to help promote personal story and worth. And so you will receive a lesson plan for every single book and a letter from me for every single book. Then in the back pocket, as I've already shown you, you would receive the printable files for the 3 printable activities that really build on this idea of what are you good at and what do you care about. And then finally, you also receive this emotional vocabulary chart, which this really pairs nicely with all of our books because emotional vocabulary is one of our key objectives. Instead of mad, glad, sad, we are stretching kids to start considering other words that better identify what they are dealing with or what they see others dealing with. So we use Zilla as a way of helping kids express what they're feeling more authentically. And that's a very important part of a child, you know, feeling seen and heard and feeling whole child validated. So as I mentioned, you get that, you get the PowerPoint of every single book. So you could actually, if you wanted to do a read aloud in your class, you will receive a PowerPoint of each book. You receive a full set, one full set of books, plus the whole video thing I was telling you about. And then you receive discounts on everything because you have partnered with us in purchasing the curriculum. You would receive discounts for the school and for families on the books themselves, as well as any future work directly with me, some of that professional development or author visit. So you'll get pricing on that, but that gives you an idea of what the toolkit is. And then finally moving into professional development, whether you work with me directly with your staff or your staff comes to one of our pre-registered events, basically what I do is I go book by book. So if you're looking for a resource for creating stronger community within your school, or if you're looking for a resource to help a child get a greater sense of confidence and purpose and worth, or if you're looking for a lesson that helps teach each other how to see each other more authentically with empathy and a sense of community, we have a PD for that. We have a book for that. We have a lesson plan for that. We have a hands-on activity for that. And so that is what I teach when I do professional development. We take one book, one lesson plan, we walk through the hands-on activity, and then we take time to brainstorm, how is this relevant in the work that you do? Because of this, our work is not just for educators, classroom educators. It's great for paras. It's great for library media specialists. It's great for counselors. It's also great if we're moving into this realm of remote learning. It's a great tool for parents as well. And as I said, you receive the electronic files that within your school family, you have our permission to share even with your parents, with your families. And that way there's kind of this seamless learning between the classroom and home. So to give you an idea of how I use how I would be teaching, for instance, this book in a professional development. We would walk through the story itself, and I'm going to share a couple of pages because this book is actually our foundational professional development now. So this professional development is actually 2 1.5-hour sessions because it's very foundational. The other books are all 1.5 hours. So in this one, we are teaching the foundational concept of autonomy, community, and resilience, and how we learn that through stories. So as you can see, Ms. Foster here is meeting with children, and we're setting the stage for using stories as an analogy for building the story within a child. She says, "Hello, friends," says Ms. Foster. "I just have to say that I'm simply delighted you've come here today." To the books all around us, she sweeps her arms wide. "Every book on these shelves holds a story inside." She selects just one book from the tip-top of the stair, then she holds it up high, way up high in the air. In this book lives a character, one of a kind, with a story unlike any other you'll find. And the same is most true for each book on these shelves. Every character has a great story to tell. So obviously we're looking at written story here, right? The idea of every story, every written story has a great character, a great story to tell. But here's the most marvelous truth of them all. Every person on earth, from the tall to the small, has a story inside, like these books. It is true. Oh, yes, my dear friend, there's a story in you. And so that's why you're here, and why I am here too. Today, we'll explore the great story in you. And so, as we venture through the book, as you can see, she starts teaching the hands activity. This is all done in rhyme. But she's asking them to think about what they're good at. And she's asking them to put that in their hand, which is symbolized by a treasure box. Then she's asking them to think about the things that they care about. And that is symbolized by a heart. And then just like we did in the video, she asks them to bring their hands together and symbolized with the treasure box and heart with Frieda, but we can see the children in the story doing this for themselves. And it says, "It's the mixture of all that you love and you do, all combined with experiences unique to you. So my friend, when you dream, you must dream inside here about what you do best, what you hold the most dear. If you do this each day, I am certain that you will awaken the story that's inside of you." Now, I'm going to share this last piece with you, and then we will be able to move forward. This will have given you enough of a glimpse of everything that we're doing. But this, to me, I wrote this at a personal time of great conflict within my extended family. We were losing a man that we loved dearly, young man. And he taught me more about leadership and resilience that I dedicated these 2 pages to him, and it has actually inspired the work that we're now doing with resilience. So all of this is honored to my brother-in-law, Tom. So here's the illustration. And this is my whole point. If we don't talk about conflict, I guarantee you the child is imagining worse than it is. I will say that again. If we don't talk about conflict, the child is imagining worse than reality. We have to have these conversations, and we have to show them that we as adults know how to handle them, and that they have things that they can bring to the table that will help us to make this a great story. I shared this whole concept, this whole professional development with a group of teachers in Springfield a few months ago, virtually. And one of the teachers reported back that her group has decided they want to do this in the fall to kick off the school year, but they don't want to talk about conflict. They want to reframe it, and they want to call it walking into greatness. See, if we don't talk about it, they're going to imagine far worse than it is. We can choose how they frame challenge. And honest to God, without that, all of the work on autonomy and community and learning is fractioned. Because if they don't feel safe, if they don't feel led, and if they don't feel purposeful, none of the other stuff matters as much. Okay? So that's why in this book, I'm very open about it. And it opens up dialogue. I've had tremendous dialogue with kids, parents, and educators around this concept of resilience and how we use it to walk into greatness. It's not the big, bad, scary thing. It's the thing that makes us who we are. So I will share with you that my brother-in-law's favorite quote as he was going through all of this was by C.S. Lewis. And the quote was this: "Hardship often prepares ordinary people for extraordinary destinies." That's the author of all of these amazing, timeless stories that we love, right? That was his paradigm for writing them. Hardship, not good times, not, hey, everything looks wonderful in my life. No, no, no. It was the hardship often makes ordinary people extraordinary, right? It's turning it on its head. It is not being scared of conflict and challenge. It is embracing it and saying, we've got this. And that reframes it for a child in a way that she can digest, and it totally shrinks down those demons that are terrorizing her. So this is what it says. "But I'll tell you, each story has many hard places, dark shadows, cold winters, great storms, uphill races. Your story will have them. Might have some right now, but hard places can make stories better somehow. Do not fear. Don't give up. For the best stories, true, are about valiant people who saw hard things through. Yes, great courage, persistence, and hope make a story of victory, bravery, honor, and glory." Walking into greatness. It's all about reframing. And if we can teach our kids to know that conflict is not only not the enemy, but the very thing that you can come up against and say, it makes me great, then we've just created a very different thing. We don't get courage on an easy day. We don't get perseverance on an easy day. Everything that constitutes a hero is created in a difficult, challenging circumstance. So we don't need to look at conflict as the scary thing to avoid, not talk about in the corner, talk about like everything's going to be fine. No, because kids all know better than that. They need us to say, yep, this is hard. Boy, oh boy, is this hard. This is really hard. But guess what? This story right here, let's read this story because this was hard. And guess what? Frieda and Zilla figured out how to make it great. And guess what? This story right here, this story was really hard in the middle. It was really hard, but Frieda's dad figured out how to make it great. And this story, 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 and this story. Because with stories, guys, the one thing I learned from day one, when my first manuscript was written without a conflict and I had to rewrite the entire center section and put a conflict in because nobody would publish it without it, I learned early on, there is no story without conflict. It's what makes us great. So why not use one of the most challenging times in recent history to create some great people? That's where I'd like to go. So last thing I'm going to share with you, and this is part of this 3-hour foundational PD, is what we really focus on in the first half is autonomy and community, which you're looking at right now. Autonomy and community, going back to this, let's look at this, the individual person and the community, but then we move into this. How many of you know of the hero's journey narrative? It's a style. I didn't until a little while ago. The hero's journey narrative is a writer's style. It is the most common style known to writing stories, to telling stories. It's the one that C.S. Lewis used himself. It basically outlines the pathway towards greatness. And so every story that has ever made you want to stand up at the end and go, oh my goodness, he did it, right? Every story that's ever inspired you to go climb a mountain or do the hard thing, it has been written with the hero's journey narrative. And here's the amazing thing. It doesn't just apply to written story. It applies directly to human story. And we can use the actual diagram to inspire a pathway towards greatness. So I'm not going to walk you through it. It's what I do in the PD. But what I will tell you is if this is what happens, ordinary person is called to into an extraordinary task. You get that? Think about any story you've ever loved. Ordinary person, right? Called to do an extraordinary, impossible thing. That's the beginning. Most people opt out, right? So walking into greatness at the very beginning is choosing to just step forward. And then what ends up happening, I'll do it very briefly. The very first thing that happens, how cool is this? Helpers come. Isn't that great? Helpers come. That's the first thing that has to happen. Think about every story, you know, someone shows up that either knows how to do it or has no idea, but will stay by your side. Helpers have to come. We are the helpers. We show up. That's what we can tell children irrefutably. Yes, I know you don't know how to do this, and I may or may not know how to do this, but I'm here. You have a helper, and there will be other helpers, and we will not leave you alone. You can do this. We'll be right back. You will do it, but we're right here. When kids know they're surrounded by support and safety, they can do great things. They can do hard things. And then what ends up happening is we move into the unknown, we hit the pit, which is the darkest, awfulest place. But when you come out, guess what happens? In the pit, it's often also called revelation. How cool is that? So in the darkest, murkiest, most awful place nobody wants to go to, what happens? Revelation. Something you didn't know before, some great, amazing truth happens. And you then proceed forward. And as a result of going through, you receive special powers and you return with gifts to give to the community around you. So we use the hero's journey narrative style as a way of helping teachers understand you can use the same process for inspiring the human story within a child. So that gives you an idea of what we do. And then when it comes to the registration, in-person registration events, as I said, these two are right now on the calendar, August 12th and 13th. We will be teaching over the course of those 2 days. I will be teaching over the course of those 2 days, every single lesson out of each of the 6 books. And you can find those at friedab.com/calendar. And as it notes, we will be continue to add dates throughout the school year as demanded, as needed. I can't tell you how often we'll be doing them, but hopefully quite often as long as there is demand for them. And so finally, let's just look at how this all breaks down price-wise. This again is something we will send to you so you can look at it more carefully. But just to give you an idea, we talked about Frieda B books, the toolkit, private events, and individual registration as the options, the things that we can provide to you. The books are $15 each. Straight out of the box, we always sell them to school for $10. So if you want to just purchase books for your classrooms, we will sell you as many as you want for $10 each, done. The toolkit is what we walked you through, contains everything that I told you about, including these discounts that you can look at more closely. The toolkit, you know, all of the electronic files, everything is $750. But let's look down here. You also can get a foundational base package, which bundles with it 3 hours of my time for a total of $1,600. So you save $140 there. So if you want to do the toolkit plus 3 hours to use me however you want with your students, your staff, your families, that's that. The other thing, for those of you who are a representative of a district, if you are within a district and more than one school in your district wants to purchase the toolkit, because remember, the toolkit is exclusive to the school, please. We sell them individually to schools. But if you had multiple schools, what we'll do is after you purchase the first, for every additional school in the district, it's $375 for each school. Then with regards to private events, 3 hours with me also includes assigned set of 5 books and the discounts. And then the individual registration, the pricing is here. You have the option of adding on a lesson plan, the lesson plan for that book for $20. And then you also receive one book, the book, with that individual registration. So as you look at this, and we'll make sure you get the hard copy of it or the electronic file of it, you'll start to see what might work with your budget. Okay? All right. I am breaking out of here, and I am now honored to introduce to you Andrea Diodo and Amy Yost, both principals in Shelton, Connecticut. Andrea is with Long Hill Elementary and Amy is with Sunnyside. Paula and I have had the absolute delight of working with both Andrea's and Amy's staff and Amy's students over the course of, well, years. We've done multiple events and different activities with Amy, and we were pleased to bring Andrea in more recently with a full staff PD. So I'm going to just allow them to speak a little bit so you hear from an educator standpoint of how they have used this work that we do in their schools. So Andrea and Amy, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Renata. Thank you for having me. And thank you, Rosie, for helping put this together. Really appreciate it. I've had the pleasure of working with Renata. I was going back last night, Renata. It's about 10 years now. So I had the pleasure of meeting Paula and Renata at book 1, and then every year getting more and more excited when another book was going to be released. So I've come through it with their perspective as an administrator, but also as a teacher. So in the realm of how does this fit in, it's definitely a worthy toolkit, as you say, a resource that we use through our SEL initiatives within the school. I'm also a ruler school, so it talks a lot about feelings, and it just, everything really intertwines together. And that's what I love so much about this resource or toolkit, that it really identifies, and I am one with the same philosophy as Renata about the whole child. We need to make sure that the child recognizes who they are, where they fit, before we can even move academically. And research is there to show that, as many of the educators that I'm speaking or that are here today know that we do need to make sure that every child is recognized in some way. What I love most about the kit, though, it does bring in that some dramatic play. So within the lesson plans that are provided in all the videos. So again, it made it so easy for our staff to go back, look at the videos, and understand the premise of each of the books and how to bring it to life. The dramatic play, I love that piece where because kids love to get up in a classroom and act things out, and it really then becomes more internal for children to understand how they're feeling, or how to, again, that conflict resolution, to make the next steps and to see there are ways to solve problems. The way that we've utilized it at our school, although we identified a book per grade, all of the books are interchangeable per our grades. I'm a K-4 school. What we did was we took one lesson per book that was special to that one grade. So it was offhands. No other grade was going to do that lesson, just so that we made sure that there is longevity to the program, that it's not, or the toolkit, that it isn't just something that it's one and done. So it's very sacred. So there's one sacred lesson per book that no other grade does it, but that specific grade. But we've assigned a book per grade level, pretty much as Renata has shown. It goes in the book order because it just makes sense developmentally of the foundational work that you're going to be doing. And we've really had great success. So we utilize it. And again, Renata had already mentioned with Second Step. So again, that resource of different programs that you might be using for social emotional learning or within your guidance programs, that our school social worker, guidance counselor, and school psychologists use them within small group. It could be within their individual lessons that they're doing within their office, or when they come into the whole, a whole classroom setting. And then additionally, our classroom teachers also do these lessons, depending on what's going on in the world. A lot of us, I definitely will be using a lot of these that first month in September, as our district is holding the first 2 weeks with all social and emotional learning before we're getting into academics, but we've also, we incorporate it all throughout the school year. So that whole month of September for us will be a lot of social and emotional lessons within the classroom of, hoping that if we're back face-to-face and in person with our students, but otherwise we'll get very creative and we'll be doing it virtually also. So that's kind of the spin that we are, but I'll let Andrew jump in at this point to how she's utilizing it.
Yeah, so I'm the newer kid on the block in Shelton, so I had the fortune of having Amy kind of come to me a couple years ago. They were already doing some work and reached out to me and said, I have a professional development opportunity for both staffs. And we did it combined. And honestly, that was 2 years ago, and I still have staff members talking to me and telling me that one of the best PDs they've ever attended was the 3-hour PD. Not just because, teachers feel like they need more tools about SEL and about students' well-being, but because it really helped teachers reflect and look at themselves. Teachers got the most out of that PD was really looking at themselves. We've used the series, and we continue to use the series across all K-4 grade levels. We do use them. The nice part about it is it's completely able to be intertwined. We can do it in an ELA block when we're talking character traits or we're introducing conflict and resolution. We've done it in small groups. We've had psychologists used it in counseling sessions because we've had students having problems or issues, and we know that they can relate to that Frieda B character. Teachers love it. Teachers not only love to read the books, but they love how easy the whole process is. The toolkit is very teacher friendly, very easy to use. They grab the lessons, they teach them, and it's just really been something where I know teachers, and myself included, have really been looking at, what can we use to help with SEL? It weaves really well into some of our districts' plans and initiatives. It goes well into second step lessons, which our guidance counselors and psychologists use. It weaves into our PBIS model, and it weaves into habits of mind. And again, it's not a curriculum, it's not an add-on. So it wasn't like the teachers felt overwhelmed and said, why are you giving me something else to do? The teachers actually loved it because we were giving them tools to help them appropriately address social emotional needs. And basically what Amy said too, I know that with the times that we're in right now, we're really going to need to think more about social emotional learning of students. And I just feel that this is such a great series, and figuring out how, not just in the first 2 weeks, again, but throughout the year, how we can continue to weave this into what we're doing every day and using the kids to relate to a character. So I have nothing but, praise for this, this program, and I've seen the success, come full circle in our building.
And the books, just the way the books, Renata does such a beautiful job with the rhyme, that it's just so engaging to students and adults. Like within the toolkit, I love to listen to Renata read the books, I'll be honest with you. Just the way, the rhythm that she and kind of the song, like, it's just very magical. So I think for kids, it's it is something that kind of takes you away from this scary reality that they're all facing, and as adults that we're all facing right now, to kind of pull back a little bit. And we know that children connect the most through story. Or they could have awareness for themselves. They can recognize it in someone else before they can internalize it and say, gee, that is how I'm feeling too. So just the manner, it's so simple, but yet such a powerful tool. And I'm thrilled, Renata, that you're doing a 7th book, because, you know, and on a side note, as a mom, I give her books as gifts all the time to friends when they have children. My nieces all have, and nieces and nephew have the books. And, you know, what's the best gift to give but a book by, you know, signed by the author. So, I was just very fortunate to meet Renata my early stages in teaching, that now we can carry it out through, you know, within our building. So, you know, be happy if anybody wants, I can throw my email in the chat room there. If anyone wants to reach out, I'd be more than happy to talk to any educators that are on here, or, you know, administrators or teachers of, you know, if you have any questions on it. Hi, Rob, and I see a colleague of mine from Waterbury there. So I'd love to talk to you, Rob, and I think you would really love it. It's a school I used to teach at, so I'll give a shout out to Rotella the magnet school there, interdistrict magnet school, and I could definitely see it fitting into the premise there. So,
Thank you, Andrea and Amy. Thank you. I mean, all of you, thank you for the work that you are doing. I can't imagine. First of all, I have grown kids, so I get the pass on having to even figure out what to do as a mom. And secondly, just watch what you guys are having to navigate. I said recently, it's like having to make a decision driving, you know, 75 miles an hour, like, and then stop on a dime and make a decision, but you don't really stop and keep going. It's so, you know, I just want you to know that Paula and I, you are continually in our thoughts, and we are here to support you. However we can use what we do to make your job easier, please don't hesitate to let us know. So with that, I am going to open it up to questions. And, you know, like I said, if you would prefer to have a private conversation, you know how to reach out to us. Either mention something in the chat or send us an email at info@friedab.com. In fact, as we're doing this, I'm just going to put that slide up one more time. And if you could just share any questions you might have at this time that we can still discuss while we're together. Does anyone have anything they'd like to ask or comment on?
Robin Henry. I like Amy's idea of doing one book per grade level, because sometimes it's overdone if they keep going, you know. But I was wondering if schools have done, like, maybe purchasing a set or the kit for each grade level. Would that be recommended? Like, is that too much? I don't know, Amy, what you've done, or.
I think I can answer. I don't want you to spend more than you need to. So within a school, you really only need to purchase one toolkit, because the toolkit, remember, comes with all the electronic files. So as far as lesson plans and the videos, and it's an honor system, we ask that is available to all of your educators, all of your families, but not beyond that. Okay, so you're free to share all of that. So if you're going to invest any additional money anywhere, I find that schools typically do that in the form of the books. So they might want books per classroom or per grade level. And of course, the great thing is if you purchase the toolkit, now your cost for books goes all the way down to $8 each as opposed to $15. So that just gives you a little bit of idea. And then of course, if you wanted me to supplement anything with regards to your staff or doing anything with your families virtually for the time being, or down the road in person, then that's something you also could add on. So the toolkit, no need to purchase more than one toolkit, because you get everything for everyone in that one package.
And Robin, I would just say, if you had additional monies, the PD is definitely worth, you know, doing a couple rounds or different, having the family nights too. Renata, we did a residency with Renata a few years back. She worked in our building for a full week, and then we culminated that week with a family gathering. But I would just put more into the books too. And what's the great thing with the electronic piece, you can throw them up onto smart boards. So, which is awesome. Cause again, that book, it's these, you know, big screen, like watching a movie, it brings it to life for the kids. So, you know, but we do, and just to clarify, we do use the book through all the grades, but we just have that sacred lesson per book, per grade, so that that one book, the beginning book, the one that Renata showed with the Frieda B, you know, with the bed, that one is sacred to our kindergarten, because again, it's the foundation. Thank you, Renata. Yes. And then so within the lessons that are provided through the toolkit, there's multiple lessons. We just have that one sacred per grade level, so that nobody touches that stuff.
That's a good idea. I like that. And again, we don't know what's going to happen, but I mean, already our district is talking about like no parents in the building. So I don't know, because I am a magnet school, I need to do something different, and I'm worried about, you know, and so I think maybe doing a virtual with Renata for our families, that's something maybe we could do.
Sure. There was also, I had 2 school districts at the end of the school year. So just probably it was May, reach out to me. One had the idea, brought it to me, and then shared it with another district. So I did it for both of them, but I did, and this was something we just created for them. But again, we're always welcome. We're always open to thinking outside the box and creating something different for you if you want that. So they came and said, hey, you know, we really want to send, you know, we want to close this school year with some kind of access or tools for our parents over the summer. And so they asked me if I would record a video for parents to access whenever they want. So it was 20 minutes of kind of PD with the parents. One was on autonomy and community. The second video was on resilience and how you can use the stories on your bookshelves to inspire autonomy and community. And then the second was how you can use stories on your bookshelves or personal narrative, family stories, to help a child grasp autonomy and community and resilience and have those conversations. And then the second half of the video was me reading, you know, a Frieda B book to the kids and exampling some of what we talked out through the reading. So I only bring that up as I don't want you to, Paula, and I don't want you to think that what we put out there is the only thing. We're creative people. We love to be able to reproduce what we've created. But if there's something on your heart and you say, listen, I need to do X, Y, and Z, and I don't know how to do that, let us help you figure out how to do that, either using what already exists or brainstorming a different approach. We're very, very open to that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you for your time. Anyone else? All right. Well, you know where to find us now. So our web address is, if you need to find this particular curriculum on our website, it would be friedab.com/ES, which stands for Educator Support. We will certainly, if you gave us your email address, we'll be sending that link to you along with the other items. But I'm just going to put that out there. So I am going to close with this quote by Fred Rogers, because he is really who I try hardest to emulate. And it just speaks directly to what we do. As human beings, our job in life is to help people realize how rare and valuable each one of us really is. That each of us has something that no one else has or ever will have. Something inside that is unique to all time. It's our job to encourage each other, to discover that uniqueness, and to provide ways of developing its expression. So I could never say it better than that, so I like to close with that thought. So please do reach out to us if ever you want to have a conversation about how we can help you use what we do with your students, staff, and or families. We'd be honored to have that conversation with you. And we just thank you again. Rosie and Connecticut Association of Schools, thank you for inviting us to this today.
Thank you for doing all of this. It's wonderful. And I also want to say thank you to Andrea and Amy for being a part of this conversation as well, and to everyone else who joined us today. But thank you so much for opening up the Story Barn to us today. And hopefully when things get better, we will be able to do something at the Story Barn. And I want to encourage everybody who's watching this to make that field trip out to the Story Barn. So thank you again.
Thank you to everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.